Retail workers, most terrible customer you had to deal with? I've had some bad ones, but the most baffling was a self-righteously angry French primary teacher just because of how crazily she acted in front of her own class. I worked in a gift shop at a tourist site that saw a lot of school groups visit. These school groups would usually spend all day in the museum, let the kids browse and buy souvenirs in the gift shop for the last 15 minutes, then have to get on the bus and drive home. So there were 2 cashiers processing on average 50-75 kids in 10 minutes, once they'd spent 5 minutes picking out their items. If we didn't get to a kid in time, they would cry and be sad about not getting their souvenir, and we would get a bad Yelp review from mom and an angry manager because we missed out on a potential sale. Oftentimes, kids would make an impulsive purchase within a minute or two of showing up at the gift shop, regret it within 3 minutes once they see something cooler, and ask us to do a return or exchange. Some kids would do this 4 or 5 times in the span of the 15 minutes they were in our gift shop, clogging up the registers like crazy. Because of this, my manager implemented a no refunds policy for large school and tour groups due to time constraints, completely legal in my province. We posted signs warning about this policy on the front door, behind the tills, and on the front counter. Most teachers understood that it was there to make sure the group moved through smoothly and every kid got served. We used discretion and allowed refunds in cases where we had time, or they seemed like a nice kid who wasn't going to do it repeatedly. One day, we got a group in of about 100 school children from Quebec. They each had about $5, $10 to spend, which in a museum gift shop means you can't buy much of anything. As such, most of them bought a postcard or pencil and some chips and candy to share with their friends. A second teacher came in at about minute 10, while we had like 50 kids to process still in 5 minutes, shouting and chastising each kid for making bad purchases and telling them to buy more meaningful souvenirs. Lady, you can't buy artisan goods for $5 at a museum gift shop. She marched them all up to the counter at once, bypassing the line of happily waiting little children, and demanded I refund all of their purchases. With 50 kids served already, that would have taken at least 15-20 minutes, and they had 5 left. I apologized and pointed to one of the 5 or 6 signs we had posted around the shop. Half of the kids had already started eating their chips and candy. I definitely couldn't refund that. She was absolutely apoplectic with rage, and I literally did not have time for her tantrum. I kept apologizing to her in French while trying to process the transactions of the little kids behind her, waving them forward while they're all scared by the mean yelling teacher. About 20 of the kids leave weepy-eyed because they didn't get to buy their postcards and Kit Kats. I'm not the greatest at French, but I could clearly make out the phrases disgusting person, terrible store, this is ducking ridiculous, and you've ruined their trips. Lady, I think you shouting taberna in front of 6-year-olds is worse than me not refunding half-eaten Pringles. Story 2. Well, I work at Publix. I was working the deli that day when a very obese lady in a Mart cart rode up into the subline and asked for a sub. I get the bread ready and asked her if she wanted mayo on it. She tells me to put extra mayo on the bread. After that, I got the meats she wanted. As I put them on the bread, she told me to put more mayo on the meat, to which I did. I put the cheese on the meat, and she asked for more mayo on the cheese. After I put all the veggies on her sub, she asked me if we sell our mayo. I told her I would have to ask, to which she tells me that she likes to spread mayo on after each bite. I accidentally made a gag motion. She got super mad at me, grabbed her sub, and left. The next day, I was working in the bakery when the same lady came in. She saw me and asked if I worked in the bakery. After I told her yes, that this is where I was hired. She told me that she thought only smart people worked in the bakery, but she guessed that idiots could work there too. She asked for 2 donuts, to which I replied, "Would you like some mayo on those?" I haven't seen her since. Probably had a heart attack from all the mayo in her bloodstream. Story 3. I wasn't really working in retail, but I was definitely in the service industry. So a couple years ago, I worked at a car dealership for a bit, and one of my jobs was shuttling customers home and such while their cars got worked on. Well, I dropped off this 50-plus-year-old woman at this restaurant around 2 p.m., I think. Before dropping her off, she asked me, "Will you be able to pick me up at such and such time?" I said, "I will," with a smile on my face. She was just about out when she remarked, "You better not forget me," in a both serious and cheerful way. Well, some hours passed, and I get a call from one of the service advisors that woman needs to be picked up. Keep in mind, I got this call when I was shuttling another customer to his home. Luckily, the other customer didn't live too far from the restaurant she was at. So I get around to picking her up, and I noticed she had a couple of drinks, which concerned me a little, but not too much. So she's tagging along with us to the other customer's house, which I'm dropping him off at. Anyways, they get to talking. She asks him what he does for a living. He says he sells commercials to TV stations and networks. He starts listing them off, then he lists a Fox News. I'm no fan of Fox, but she really isn't a fan of Fox. So I dropped the guy off and all hell breaks loose after that. I had to endure an hour of this woman ranting about how she hates Fox, Republicans, the South. She's from Pennsylvania, we're in the Southeast. The time it's taking to get the dealership, we were detoured because a bicyclist got hit by a car and bad traffic ensued, and the dealership. At one point, she asked me if I think she's a Karen. I kept my mouth shut the whole time, only saying sorry when I felt the need to. We eventually got to the dealership and I let her out. I immediately took the shuttle van to the back of the parking lot to vent and decompress from all the stress she threw at me. I wait until she leaves the dealership for good, and then I walk in. The assistant manager asked, "What did you do?" I told them. They told me she was cursing and flipping off everyone in the dealership, even the customers. She told them that she was going to call the BBB and the freaking governor, which just so happens to be a Republican. Honestly, she was the most miserable person I had ever met. Story 4. I worked at a bookstore. We sold used and new books. This lady kept insisting that we were trying to scam her by labeling used books as new. She methodically unshelled 24 or so books and brought them up to the counter to argue one by one that they were actually used, not new. None of the books were used. We tried showing her that some were published literally 3 days ago, but she wasn't buying it. I explained that the publisher chose to print the book on off-white pages with uneven page sizes, but she wasn't buying it. I said that the dust jacket just got dinged in shipment. It happens a lot. Best I can do is 10% off, but she wasn't buying it. She'd do these 9 or 10 times over the course of a month. She would come in, pick out about 20 books, bring them all up, and argue that each and every one of them was used, and we were scamming people. She'd involve other customers in the charade, get loud, and threaten to file complaints with the Better Business Bureau. Eventually, someone would have to give her a coupon or discount to get her to shut up so we could check out the rest of the customers and she'd leave. This persisted for the better part of a month, each time the ownership group declined to kick her out. Problem was, she was actually spending some money. Even if she only paid 80% of what everyone else did, we still were making money. Then she made a new hire cry. The assistant manager was late back from lunch, and discounts have to be approved by a manager. So she was holding up the line for 10 minutes, calling the poor checkout girl all sorts of nasty things, questioning her intelligence. I was never so happy to kick someone out and tell them they're trespassing if they come back. Lady was a massive ducking Karen, thought she was smarter, and knew more about books than every single one of us. Story 5. I've worked in crafty minimum wage jobs for the past couple of years, so I have a lot of stories. 2 in particular came to mind. 1. An older woman came up to me asking for a shirt to go with a skirt she had purchased for her granddaughter at another store. She also didn't have the skirt with her. Normally, this wouldn't be a problem, but that was all the information she would give me. What does the skirt look like? Just a plain black skirt. Does you have a specific style in mind? She doesn't. Is it for a special occasion? No. Does your granddaughter have a favorite color? Do you see her wear a specific type of shirt often? Nope. At this point, I had no idea what else to ask her, so I just pointed to the nearest rack of shirts and asked if that would work. She sighed heavily and said in a nasty tone, "Is there anyone else who can help me since you obviously can't?" I was completely baffled. She went on to ask 2 of my coworkers before leaving, apparently unable to find what she was looking for. 2. A woman came up to the counter holding a few pairs of panties that were on clearance. She wouldn't put them on the counter and instead handed them each to me individually, holding them by the tag. In retrospect, I did think this was a little weird, but she didn't say anything to me about how she wanted them bagged or anything, so I scanned them as I would scan any other customer's items. After I scanned the first one, I put it down on the counter so I could scan the next one, and she flipped out. She started screaming about how she didn't want me touching her panties, and that was why she was holding them by the tag. I apologized because she seemed genuinely upset, but she went on to get my manager and started shouting about how disrespectful I was and that she wouldn't be shopping with us again. Looking back, I think she must have had OCD, but this all could have been avoided if she had told me how she wanted her items scanned. I'm not a mind reader. Also, it wasn't like she was the first person to touch those panties anyway, considering the people who made them, the employees at the store I worked for, and other customers that shop with us. Story 6. Not me, but my dad. There's a tie for which is the worst. One woman was crazy, and the other was an idiot. When I was young, I'd come into his work some days and clean up for a little money. At the time, he was manager at a car repair tire shop. One day, a woman comes in, and she was furious. I was maybe 11 years old and cleaning the front desk, so I got to hear it all. She was very rude, screaming and yelling because of the crap service. The so-called crap service was her waiting maybe 2 minutes behind people who had already been there. When she got to the counter, she voiced how displeased she was with the service she had been provided previously. What could a car repair place possibly do to make someone so furious about fixing a car? Well, she didn't originally know what was wrong, so the employees had to test drive the car to figure it out. She was pissed off because someone trying to figure out what was wrong with her car used the air conditioning on a day where it was humid as all hell and over 100 degrees F. She left after yelling for a while. I still have no idea what she hoped to accomplish with this. The other one is more recent. Same position, different company. An older lady comes in to leave a box of donuts because she was so pleased with her service the previous day. That's so nice of her. What could possibly go wrong? Well, my dad hadn't been working on the day she got the service, and the people from the previous day were off now. So Dad sees a box of donuts. Having not eaten anything at all, he takes one. Halfway through it, the lady notices this and starts complaining, basically saying he didn't deserve it. The ones who helped her did, blah, blah, blah. He explained they weren't working that day, and she's still very displeased. When you're halfway through a donut, do you even put it back? Of course not. He finishes it. The next day, he gets a call from his boss saying that a complaint was filed and asked what happened. They both laughed it off. What did she expect to happen? Firing someone over eating a donut that was left for people who helped her? Story 7. So this was about 3 years ago when I used to work as a back-of-house member for a large toy store. Working in the back meant I had to check inventory and make sure the shelves were full. Around Christmas time, a customer came in for a toy that had been selling like crazy. If you did not call to reserve or order this toy for an in-store pickup, you had no chance at getting the toy. So this customer asks me for said toy, and I proceeded to tell him if he has not ordered it, there's a minimal chance. We have it in the back. He then begins to curse at me and tell me that I'm useless and incompetent at my job, also saying I'm ruining his family's Christmas. At the time, being 19, it brought me down knowing I may have ruined someone's Christmas, but the guy was such in a hole. As I was walking back to the back room to check to see if we had it, another customer asked for the same toy. It ended up being the sweetest mother I have ever met, understanding we may be short on this toy that's been selling out every day. So I checked in back and found one of these toys hidden away, not scanned into the bays. So as you can figure out, I gave this toy to this sweet lady and came back to the guy and told him we were out. He was not happy. Then he sees this lady with the toy checking out and begins to freak out even further. I told him she had asked for the toy first, which infuriated him. The satisfaction I felt from giving a gift to the woman who was polite to me felt great. I felt like Santa that day, punishing the rude, naughty, and rewarding the polite. So don't be an a-hole to a young teenage worker trying to make some change for college. We may be dumb, but we're still smart enough to screw you over. Story 8. Worked at Kohl's for 2 years in the customer service department. The day after Christmas is our worst day. The lines for returns were halfway around the store. I'm 8 months pregnant, putting on my best damn happy face that I can, and I just want to take a break so I can waddle out to my car and let out the farts I had been holding in. Pregnancy makes you super gassy. And right before my break, a woman stomps up to my register and slaps a receipt that was as long as my arm on the counter. I didn't get my 15% discount. I brought in a coupon. I stared at her receipt. I knew what I would have to do. The manager at the register beside me sighed and nodded. I had to return every item on that receipt by typing in each individual UPCC code. There was about 65 of them. I typed them all in, checked 3 times to see if I had them right, and rang up her discounted money. She snatched it from my hands and said that I was taking way too long. I then had to tell her that she wasn't done. We had to ring it all back up and give her discount to her. She rolled her eyes. I typed back in the entire receipt, applied her discount, and let out the best fart I've ever had in my life. I don't know how it was silent, but it was. My coworkers knew I was gassy because I apologized for my atrocious farts before and during every shift. My manager was laughing at her register. I gave the woman her discount, can't even remember how much it was, and she curled her nose up, looking around her at the customers behind her as if they had farted. At that point, I just didn't care. She wasn't the worst, but the one that pissed me off the most. Story 9. I used to have a bookstore customer who is one of the worst human beings I've ever known, for several reasons. She smelled strongly of garlic. She would call every few days, ask if we had a book, and tell us to put it on hold for her until she could get there. Not an odd request, we did this all the time for everybody, but policy was to hold for 3 days. She complained to corporate that this wasn't long enough, because she lived so far away. 30 minutes, UTF. And at one point, we actually had about Farnsworth on hold for her for 6 months. One day, a customer asked for a book that the only copy was on hold for Garlic Woman, so I pulled it and sold to the customer, ordering another copy for the stash. And don't you know Garlic came in the next day and cussed me out for not having that one book. She would stop at a copy center and make copies of the coupon she was emailed, threatening to call corporate on us if we didn't honor her coupons for her every book, even though they clearly said 1 per customer per day. She once came in with 27 coupons for 30% off, equal to the employee discount. She called one of my employees. When we got a new policy system, I told her we could no longer take multiple coupons because of the system. She yelled and screamed at me for 10 minutes. While I completely ignored her, and shared a plate of homemade cookies with other customers. After the bookstore closed, I managed a pet store, and she found me there. She wanted a particular dog toy that was rubbery and shaped like a bone and had little bumpy nubby on it. We only had 4. She wanted more and was pissed that I couldn't get an intercompany transfer for more, cussed me out again, and I forbade my staff to ever give her to me on the phone again. Story 10. I was working express for the first time ever at my first job. I was scanning the items on my belt for this woman, but she had to find something else. Don't do this at express. And I said, okay. She had a basket full of stuff, but I only scanned the items on the belt. I'm used to working the longer ones, and some people have yelled at me for putting it in the wrong order or whatever. She comes back and berates me for being lazy. Then she has 20 cat foods. This is express, 15 items or less. I didn't say anything, but we have to ring everything up individually. Unfortunately, nothing is quantified. When I start, she asks, "Did anyone show you how to put it in all at once?" I told her no. I rang the rest up by scanning one 10 times. She scowls and says, "That's not what she meant," and told me that someone really should show me, and her tone was just really rude. I hope she comes back one day so I can either deny her at express or tell her nothing is quantified and go really slowly. Also, not me, but right next to me, a dude had cough medicine. And when the cashier rang it up, she asked for his date of birth because we're not legally allowed to sell it without asking. Unless they look 20 or younger, we don't have to card them. He was about 50, but we have to put their birthday or whatever they say in the system. He told her to put in her birthday. She said she's not allowed to do so. He starts a whole Karen fit about how it's offensive, and he refuses to do so, starts screaming and everything. He didn't get his cough syrup. I've had someone try to do that with me for cigarettes. She told me to put in my birthday even though she was clearly old enough. I looked at her and said, "Ma'am, I don't think you'd like that. I'm not old enough." Story 11. Worked at Sprint. At the time was a repair tech. Here's a few. One woman came in to fix her big-ass Nextel brick, the huge ones from 2008-ish. I opened it up and it was nearly rusted through. Let her know it wasn't covered as her rotten toddler ran through the store, knocking everything off the shelves. She got mad, threw the phone at me as I was walking away, and hit her dropping child square in the face. One guy comes in, hands me a phone, says it just stopped working. I take out the battery and piss just pours out of the phone. He admits he dropped it in a urinal while drunk. A hole could have been honest and let me put on gloves. I had him tossed from the store. Best customer ever. Guy comes in, fat Italian guy, Hawaiian shirt, gold chains, a walking, talking New Jersey stereotype. I get to work on his phone, easy fix, hand it back to him, and he looks so happy. He leans in real close, and whispers to me, "Hey, do you like bread?" "Yeah, buddy." I didn't get the gut from not liking bread. We laughed. He leaves. He comes back with a hand cart and 6 ducking 2x3 cardboard boxes filled with fresh-baked bread for me and tips me at $20. This guy was just awesome. Story 12. I worked in retail for a few months as I couldn't get a maintenance loan for university last year. And with my level of financial management, I couldn't keep taking money off my parents. The place I worked at, Hollister, has a huge customer base of people who aren't from the UK, be it Arabs, East Asians, whatever. The clothes seem to be popular for people who don't have that store in their country. So some guys just buy in bulk. There was an Egyptian customer who was in the UK to visit a family and was ducking loaded. Like seriously. He was with his wife and kids and he had piles and piles of clothes for himself and his daughters. He sees that I'm a sales associate at the place and asks if he can get the VAT, so 20% off deducted from his purchases as he is not a UK national. I say that it should be okay, but the store has a policy, so I'll need to speak to my manager. He started to get hissy with me, and then when the manager comes to him and explains the policy, that with the receipt they can claim the VAT back at the airport but not at the store, he lays into the both of us telling us we're idiots and we should be ashamed of ourselves. Plot twist, I'm of Arab descent. He keeps on yelling and frightens people away, and I get a bit of a blocking from my manager too as I wasn't straight with him. Like what the duck 2 blockings for the price of 1. I resigned not too long after, good riddance. Bad bosses and some customers were full of it. Oh, and quite often I'd have customers assume I'm a dumb millennial who works at an American clothing store because he never went to university. When I on occasion told them that I in fact was in law school at one of the top universities in the country, their faces went white. Priceless. Story 13. Was a floor worker at American Eagle for a summer back in high school. And one day, while my friend, we'll call her S, was working cashier, this lady came in already caring and moaning about something. Well, it turns out she had come in like a week previous and bought 4 pairs of jeans. Pretty expensive since it's AE. Well, she didn't try them on in store, and since our sizes were slightly different than other companies, she had assumed that if she got size 8 jeans, they would fit her. Well, they didn't. This was apparently our fault, even though we always encouraged people to try them on first. So she starts screaming at my friends about how we are scum and that it's our fault our size 8 jeans didn't fit her, even though S was telling her we could refund her or just switch them out for a bigger size. Well, the final straw for me was when she told S her parents ought to have just not had her so they wouldn't have to live with such a disappointment. Quick backgrounds had lost her father, a very kind, sweet man, 11 days earlier. I lost it and told the lady to get the duck out of my store and don't come back. Well, she did, but filed all sorts of complaints against me. The next day, my manager called me in and asked what happened, and I told him. He was not angry at all and just told me if I see her come in again to just go into the back room and do inventory until I was told she was gone. He then thanked me for standing up for us because we were like a big family. Real caring of a lady, but an awesome place to work. Story 14. When I worked at Nordstrom selling men's shoes in 2006, a woman came in with shoe trees from the late 80s, early 90s, based on the old school Nordstrom logo on the boxes. For those unaware, Nordstrom has a very lax return policy, but it doesn't mean they'll always return anything and everything, even though they can. Anyway, she came in and placed about 12 of these old shoe trees on the counter and asked for a refund. I asked for a receipt. She didn't have one. Asked for her info to look up the transaction, nothing came up. I could tell she was going to be a giant pain in the ass. So rather than completely reject her, I offered her sale price, $15 in return, rather than regular price, $20. This was a typical way of doing things when you couldn't figure out how much the customer bought them for initially. Since these were about 15, 20 years old and used, I figured I was giving her a deal. Boy, was I wrong. She started yelling at me, telling me that her family is not a sale family and would never have bought them on sale, so she should get back full price and in cash. In addition, her husband was on his deathbed and would no longer be needing any of these, and that she needed the money. However, she came in with a nice designer bag and one of the biggest rocks I've ever seen on her finger, but whatever. I was so disgusted with this woman and her attitude that I had to call the Ahmad to come down and deal with her. It's still the only time a person made me so angry and feel so disgusted in her lack of decency that I had to walk away from the whole situation and go on break. Story 15. My first job was a bag boy at a grocery store. Part of the job is shagging carts people leave in the parking lot. We were always told to look around and help people if they are putting groceries in their car. One day I saw a person leaning into their front seat, clearly agitated, so I strode over to see if I could help. A bit too late, I realized this person was elbow deep into jacking the car. I was halfway into my "can I help you" crap when the dude jumps up and pulls a knife on me and comes at me. I ran back into the store and told the manager, and the car owner came to the front after he made a pay call. Another manager and I headed back to the door to see this idiot successfully get the car going and then slowly go the wrong way around the parking lot, which is pretty hilarious in retrospect. At the time, I was still shaking. The car owner came up and just laid into me, yelling about how I should have tried to stop him. I tried to explain, and my manager kept apologizing to the lady on my behalf. I know the customer is always right, but it really bothered me that I was trying to help. Almost got stabbed, then got yelled at, then no one stood up for me. Holes all around. Story 16. I was working at Kohl's in 06, just after I got out of the Relevant. It was 9:55 and we closed at 10. Queen Bee's check didn't go through for whatever reason. She flipped her crap, got in my face, and screamed at me as to tell her why her check didn't go through. I told her the God's honest truth that the check company was third party and that the store had no way of determining why a check was blocked. But I'd be happy to provide her the number to the check company, and they could tell her what happened. This went on for 20 minutes, since she just knew that I was hiding the truth. In the end, the general manager of the store came up and got her to leave. After that, the GM looked at me and asked how I was able to maintain my composure after being yelled at like that. I said, "Sharon, I've had the general of the 18th Air Force try to pull rank on me to let him onto the flight line without a badge. You will go to jail along with the unauthorized person." That lady was nothing compared to that. Story 17. You'd think hobby stores would be as laid back as you could get, but we still got gits. I have my own tales, but one of the worst was from another store, the owner of which I know. They had a loading door in the parking lot at the side of the building. It was bolted shut, so there was a sign, "Shipments only. Customers, please use front door." So one day they hear, bang, 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 ooh, and figure some parcels have arrived. Open lock, undo latch, lift out bar, heave big door open, and this guy just barges in and demands to know where the can is. The store is not a restaurant and is not obligated to keep a public restroom and clean up after everyone, and they never have. But the owner says okay and points out where to go. When the guy comes out, he goes to the magazine rack and eventually plops a stack of mags on the counter and produces his Visa card. "I'm sorry," says H, "but between the small margin we get on magazines and the percentage our bank charges on charge sales, I'd be paying you to take these away. I have to ask for cash." The guy turns red and bellows that this is craptiest treatment he's ever had and he's going to tell everyone he knows what kind of lousy service they can expect from this store. He storms out. It's a competitive business, and this git could cause tangible damage. But that's what you get for treating someone special. Story 18. Worked at a Staples as a tech back in 2009. African guy comes in a thick accent, explains that his computer won't boot. I check it out and find out the hard drive is corrupt. Corporate policy was to suggest a backup restore. Guy says he doesn't want the backup, so I explain that he'll lose all his documents. He doesn't care, so I do the system restore. He comes back the next day raging that all his family photos are gone. His dead grandma's photos are gone, and he doesn't have another copy, etc. My manager caves and tells me to try to recover the files. After letting it run for a few hours, I check, and the only things I can recover are his 2 massive adult film folders. I tell my manager I want hazard pay. She watches a few seconds of one video and tells me, delete it all. You couldn't recover anything, understand? He comes in and screams at my manager for a few minutes until she quietly tells him, we both know what was on there, and you're lucky I don't call the police. Never saw him again. Story 19. I worked at a Christmas tree and pumpkin patch, where in the winter, you could go buy a tree and the fall a pumpkin. Anyway, it was easy work for both seasons. I have 2 separate occasions in both seasons where I was introduced to how terrible people are. In the fall, I was put to dealing with the cash register, so it was simple, right? You pay for pumpkins. Well, someone thought that breaking a pumpkin would get them a discount. Like, she legit broke it in front of us. Took it to the register and said it was broken. Can I get it for free? We said no, so she asked for a lower price. We still said no, so she gave us a glare and just sort of left. So now we had a broken pumpkin and she ran off before we could stop her. The manager was at the other end of the farm. In the winter, I got a rather boring job of an elf where I would take money to take pictures of kids on Santa's lap. It was like $5 for a single and $10 for a family. Anyway, these parents pay $5 and then put the kid on Santa's lap. Like usual, the kid cries, and then the go hold up, he's crying, why didn't you take the picture before he cried? Like they are yelling at me for the kid crying when we did nothing to cause the kid to cry. Story 20. I work at a retail place off the highway, so we get tons of tourists. And you're a more than average amount of bananas and straight terrible humans. The most terrible customer I've ever had, and trust me, I've had tons, was a white and kind of rougher man, probably in his late 50s. I carded the guy for alcohol being the law and all, and said, guy goes bat crap, nuts. It was as if I triggered something in him. It was an extremely busy weekend day, and there he is, holding up a line, threatening to have me fired, and how I was full of ducking bullcrap. While he makes this ridiculous scene, his wife stands there, apologizing to me over and over and over, and shows me her ID. The look on her face was heartbreaking, because I instantly knew she saw this before. She says right before she left, and after he stormed off, I really am sorry. He really doesn't like to be carded. Sorry again and have a nice day. Turns out the man found his way back to where the majority of our employees were and got in a fight with one of our managers to the point of where they came extremely close to calling the police and told him to immediately leave the store before they do. Summer. Story 21. I had a lady who needed help with a lawnmower. I helped for a good 30-40 minutes, way more than I actually needed to do. She paid for everything, is happy, forgets. She also needs trimmer wire. I help her another 5 to 10 minutes to find the wire she needs. I tell her the price for this single item. At least 3 times she pays and leaves happy. About an hour later, she comes back screaming, furious, and demands I give her money. At this time, I have a line of about 15 people. I calmly tell her if she needs help, she can get in the back of the line. After about 4 more customers done, she says she has the right to go ahead in line. At this point, I start to ignore her, as I have other customers. I have a coworker come to start their shift. I tell her to talk to the coworker. Why was she so pissed? The price tag said the trimmer wire cost 10 cents less. We were currently working on replacing the price and had not gotten to that area yet. So she spent an hour's worth of fuel to demand 10 cents back, and super pissed, to the point we banned her when I helped her for an hour worth of time. I could and would have corrected the price if she would have spoken up when the sale happened, but nope. Story 22. There have been plenty of rude people to me, which I can handle just fine. But there was one woman in particular who was just offensive for the sake of being a Karen. I work in a grocery store bakery. She wanted a cake out of the case and called so I could pick one out for her and set it aside. She picked her size, flavor, and icing type. The only cake we had that fit, her requirements had a rainbow on it. The decorators will do whatever they want for the case, which is why we tell customers to place orders ahead of time, duh. When I describe what it looks like, she says she doesn't want it because it's a gay cake. Should have hung up on her right then and there, but for some reason I was too caught off guard to stop her from speaking. I explained we need to know a little further in advance, so we can actually make something specific for her. She wasn't having it. She ended our phone conversation with, here's a tip, stop making so many gay cakes. Now obviously that's funny, but still offensive. For the sake of being a Karen, story 23. The most terrible customers are always the ones that want to commit fraud. They'll go from store to steal items, heads to another location, places the garments on our cash wraps and say, "Look, there's your sticker. I want this returned." I'm not intimidated by them anymore. I know most of the time my system will say it has been returned or there's no transactions found. I'll inquire when they bought it, where they bought it, and if there's a way of me looking up the transaction. If I can't pull up a transaction, I'll tell them why, and they have an option to speak to a manager or accept my reasoning. Some days, these fraud rings were cashing out so much money that our store ran out of money. This hurt our company so bad, our return process had to change, and we really inconvenienced customers that were legit. But the fraudsters are always the worst because they give you an attitude for pulling some shady crap. Try making an honest living and not stealing people's identity and their hard-earned money before coming up to me with your raggedy $10 handbag and Victoria's Secret tracksuit, claiming you had enough money to buy a pair of Louboutins and a Burberry coat from a third-party gift card. Girl, bye. Story 24. I used to work at chain pet store. Most of them have those big shelves at the back of the store, usually for food and carriers. The carriers get pushed around these shelves during the day. It is unavoidable. And the way my store divided up labor, people rarely had time to go fix all the shelves before closing. There were signs on the shelves with a description of the item and the price. This one guy held up the line for over 10 minutes when he had to pay more than he had thought would for a dog carrier. At first, it was the usual crap about bait and switch, and then finally, we were able to go to the back so I could show him the price. The carrier had been moved over a couple of inches, so it looked like it was in the space for the cheaper carrier. He then goes on for another 5 to 10 minutes about our organization policies and demands to have the cheaper price. Thankfully, the manager did not give in. The sheer lack of comprehension was baffling. Honorary mention goes to the woman who asked, "What happened to your face?" in a horrified voice when she noticed my birthmark. Story 25. I have worked various retail jobs and have had some interesting experiences, but the job I have now has let me witness the horror of the irate customer on a different level. I support people who live with mental illness, and one woman in particular is the definition of the customer from hell. I don't have issues with her, but she regales me with tales of all the fraud she experiences on a daily basis. Apparently, everyone is constantly trying to rip her off, from the cashier ringing up an item twice to her insurance company not paying the deductible because she didn't follow the reporting rule. In every instance of this fraud, she, in her own words, screams and swears until she gets her way, and when the company gives in to shut her up, feels validated that she is doing the right thing to protect herself. She thinks that she is automatically a target for fraud because she is an older, unmarried woman. So of course everyone would see her as an easy target. I get that she has a mental illness, which contributes to these actions, but I pity anyone who has to deal with her in a retail capacity. Story 26. When I worked at Publix, I was in the deli as a fry cook. It's closing time, and I'd already sprayed down everything and was getting ready to do the floors. We started at 9 so we could be as soon as possible. This was around 9:45 or so. And Fatty McFate strolls up in their motorized cart asking for 2 pounds of tenders. The guy helping her states that the fryers are closed for the night, and she loses her crap, demanding to talk to the manager. Our manager happened to be there as it was case night. Night we take out all the items from the display case and give the case a good clean. The manager asks what the issue is, and she explains it, being very rude. She kept her composure and told her that they aren't setting things up again just for her. The lady gets mad and tries speeding off in the cart. Those things don't go very fast, and it's just funny seeing someone mad trying to drive off with it. Story 27. I did some part-time work at a Shell gas station in East London. If you do a night shift in one of these gas stations, you will end up meeting some really ducked-up people. Usually the odd underage girls trying to buy cigarettes. We have to ask for ID, and every time they would get pissed off and call me a pocky and tell me to go back to my country. You also meet credit card scammers who would show up, fill up their cars, and give you cloned credit cards and threaten you. One of my coworkers refused to use one of their cards, and next day he was hit. He didn't pass. And we were always told to comply with them and then hit the panic button. There are all kind nasty people at night who would spit at the window and everything. On top, my boss was who had set up CCTV cameras, and he would monitor us from his home at night. Ducking hated working there. Thank God I only worked there like 5 months. Story 28. I work in a sub-post office in the UK. A man comes in peering at our opening times poster and then barks at myself and my colleague. "What time do you close?" I smiled at him and explained our hours are 8 a.m., 8 p.m. every single day. "When is your final collection?" I explained that our last collection was at 5 p.m., but we did provide other services after that time, such as banking, bureau de change, and many other services. Him. "You need to change your final collection time." Me. "Why would that be, sir?" Him. To fit in better with your opening hours. Me. The post office has no control over that, I'm afraid. It's Royal Mail who set the collection times. Him. Get your manager to change it then. This went on for a good 10 minutes or so. A back and forth where he would demand that we change our last posting. Cut a long story short, he ended up storming out of the shop in a huff. Story 29. When I worked at Blockbuster back in 2006, a customer had not returned a previous DVD rental. Only the DVD case, and he had fees. And the boss made it clear we were not allowed to rent to people with late fees or movies not returned after the due date. He tried to say I was a liar and a thief, and I had taken the DVD and hidden it. I proceeded nicely to tell him that it was store policy. He left the store, came back 5 minutes later, and threw the DVD in a frisbee motion at my head. The customer I was serving offered to go outside and beat the duck out of the guy, but I told him that wasn't necessary. I never did see that customer again. Story 30. Worked in a dodgy Chinese restaurant when I was a teenager. There was this one regular. I can only assume he was the town pimp because of the way he acted dressed. In the space of 4 years, he pinched my rise, slapped my rise, threw rubbish at me to get my attention, never tipped. This is Australia, mind you, so it's not compulsory. Spat out half-chewed meat onto the tablecloth, accidentally spilt Coke down my front, and tripped me over a few times as a joke. I still think to this day that if I saw him in the street, I'd accidentally fall over and push him into oncoming traffic. He was such an idiot. Story 31. Worked at Goodwill. This sort of crap happened all ducking day every day. Someone would buy a couch, and the cashier would call over the PA for a furniture pickup. I'd go to the floor, get the receipt, and try and find said couch or whatever the duck. I'd drag that git into the back to the donations door, the whole while thinking, these mother duckers better have a big car. Nope, Karen had an Impala and was trying to have me maneuver a ducking couch into it on my own while she stood there, finger on her chin, criticizing the duck out of me. Don't scratch my car. No more to the left. Maybe if you take it out and turn it around, it'll magically shrink 3 ducking feet and slide right in. No, Karen, your car is to ducking small. Story 32. I'm a manager at Ross, similar to Max. We had a pregnant lady come in and try to return an item with no receipt and no tags. We told her that unless she and find the same item on the floor, we cannot honor the return without some proof it's from our store. She then turned literally into the green monster. She went absolutely ape crap on my cashier, yelling, screaming, throwing pens, hitting the counter. She eventually left still yelling and cursing as she was walking out the door. Everybody was astonished. She came back in 10 minutes late and apologized to my very confused cashier and said her pregnancy hormones make her crazy sometimes. Also, a customer took a poop in our fitting room. Man, do I have some crazy stories in that store. Story 33. A lady told me that I'd ruined Christmas for her children because we were sold out of Xboxes on Christmas Eve. She then told me that I should have kept some in the back. For what? The off chance that some crazy lady would swing by last minute and need one? The best part, though, is that she wanted me to call another store and check if they had any in stock. She lost it when I told her that the next store was half an hour away and was closing in 10 minutes. Story 34. I used to work at Kohl's, and one evening I was on the registers, and this young couple came up to my counter, and everything starts out friendly enough, just the usual small talk, until she pulls out this expanding wallet full of coupons. She wanted to use this coupon that had expired like 3 months ago. I politely told her that I couldn't do that. Then she got really heated and starts careening and throwing a fit because she really wants to use her coupons. She doesn't ask for a manager or anything, though. She just kind of barks at me. This is why I hate shopping here. And I kind of laughed at her and replied, ha, oh man, you should try working here. She shut up after that and left without saying another word. Story 35. I used to work at a grocery store. There was an elderly gentleman that came in once a week. He had very advanced diabetes and had to have both feet amputated. He came in after he had recovered from surgery in a wheelchair, and we could all tell that he came in way too soon. His daughter went to do the shopping, while he stayed up in the front and talked to us regulars. He seemed to be nodding off, and we didn't think much about it since he was old and had just had surgery. However, he wasn't nodding off. There was something wrong with his sutures, and blood was starting to weep out of them all over the floor, and he was losing consciousness. It was very scary and quite disgusting. Story 36. Literally had some piece of crap pants some stuff right in front of me. I'm on the counter, and none of the other staff were watching him properly, so off he goes with $100 worth of stock. On top of that, he's the kind of a hole that goes on and on with, I haven't stolen anything, why are you watching me? Because Banana Head, you've been caught stealing a number of times before. Why the hell is it that as a retail employee, I can't do anything against theft? I get most of the logic behind it, but why on earth can't our security staff do anything about it either? I'm so ridiculously angry right now, seeing as this is the second time in a week this kind of crap has happened. Story 37. 2. Remember from my tour of duty in retail, had a guy we called Krusty the Clown. Dirty, unkempt, nasty man. Always wore the same clothing every time in the store, would empty the mobile trash dump he called a car out in the trash cans in front of our store. Well, the worst was when he'd get food at the salad bar and use his long, dirty fingernails to pick stuff out of his container and put it back in the salad bar. Another guy, not quite so bad, just somewhat annoying. He was an old guy who stank of garlic and would get mad when a cashier would refuse to take coupons he had that were expired or for products he didn't even purchase. Story 38. I used to work at Office Max printing area. I had a woman come in one time to pick up her printing project that had been finished the day before by someone else and had been done wrong due to some miscommunication. She was yelling at me and becoming more and more furious with every apology I made, refused to pay for the prints, and spoke with my manager. Once she left and we saw that she was in her car, my manager looked at me and we both broke out in hysterical laughter. It was so hard not to stare at her thick blonde mustache the entire time she was yelling at us. Story 39. I worked at Card Store in high school. I sold a candle to a woman and wrapped about 20 sheets of tissue around it before placing it in the paper bag. The next evening, the customer comes back in with the candle in about 5,000 pieces, demanding we return it. I kindly explained that the candle did not leave the store in that condition, so there is no way that we would be able to accept a return. She then started screaming that we didn't pack it good enough, and it was our fault that she dropped the candle. It was so hard for me to keep a straight face. She then demanded a manager who reluctantly accepted the return. Story 40. Not the most terrible, but the most recent. I work in a petrol station, and this guy came in complaining that we didn't have labels on the pumps. I got my manager, and this guy was upset because he'd put in the higher price, better fuel as opposed to the cheaper stuff. He went out to the pumps with my manager, and they kept pointing angrily at the pumps. The problem was there wasn't a sign on the handle telling you it was the better fuel, but if he had lifted his head to where he took the pump it from, it would have told him. But as he said, he wasn't looking there, so there you go. Story 41. Accidentally charged someone full price when they had a coupon. It was a really easy fix, but I had to swipe their card to put the difference back on the card. The lady starts yelling, asking why she needs to swipe her card again and how she is not paying anymore. I finally got her to understand that money was going back on it, but then she threw a fit when I asked her to sign the return receipt. She filed a complaint that I had made her feel stupid and she would never be coming back. Story 42. Not quite retail, but I worked in an arcade for a summer, and we used to get the local version of gypsies that would come in once a week or so. The kids would try to scam free games by saying the machine ate their quarters, so we had to watch them close to make sure. Then, the adults would come in and do the exact same crap, and say that they didn't get the tickets they should have at ball or whatever game they were playing. They always had dirty clothes on, smelled awful. It was as sad as it was enraging. Those kids had no shot. Story 43. Worked in a lighting department. Customer comes in asking for a change in bulb for a ceiling light fixture he bought. Proceeded to get him said bulb, and he is adamant it's not they correct ones, and wishes to see me use the bulbs. Got out a ladder, I climbed up and pulled the tiny halogen bulb out. I place it down on a counter, and as I turn around to continue talking to him, he's up the ladder. Ah, yes, it's a tiny little and then proceeds to scream the most womanly scream I've ever heard. Ducking idiot put his finger in the empty socket I pulled the bulb from. Story 44. My first job was running a register at Wally World when I was in high school. I screwed up a coupon, buy 2, get 3 free or some crap, but was super apologetic. She screamed at me for a solid 5 minutes before stalking off to customer service. Then she loaded up her car, drove home, and then came back to yell at me some more at the end of my shift. I wanted to high-five her in the face. Story 45. I work in a bakery at a grocery store. We've had people order cakes, pick it up, then complain it's not how they wanted it. If we suggest to fix it, they give the decorators crap for it. I've had one woman scoff at the idea that the workers don't actually make the cakes or desserts. If you seriously believe everything there gets made by hand by the workers, you're in denial. Everything comes practically pre-made. Or when they want a cake today, we need at least a 24 HR notice for every order. Customers with that "the customer is always right" mentality piss me off the most. Story 46. Maybe not the most terrible I've had, but the most memorable. I was working as a cashier in the 15 items or less lane. After greeting an old couple at my register and scanning a few items, I realized they're still loading more groceries onto the belt. They had at least 60 or 70 items. They're pretty grumpy, and so are the people waiting in line behind them. After finally getting them out the door, I thought I was done with them. A minute later, the man comes back with a box of unopened store-brand Cheerios. We don't want them. They're lousy. Story 47. I was an overnight cashier at a big grocery store. One night, I quickly tried to check out a line of customers that randomly occur overnight. As I waited for another cashier to come back from a break, An old man cursed me out in Spanish for having the nerve to check him out too fast. He was furious. He said something like, by rushing him out of that store, I was treating him like a ducking dog. I smiled and let him know my manager was on her way up if he had any complaints. Story 48. I was working at a lumber yard and still in training. When I started my shift, I looked around for the person I was learning from. He was helping a married couple. When I walked over, the husband glanced at my name tag and asked sarcastically, "So, knowledge grabber, were you out back having a beer?" What? The funny thing is that he was not the most terrible customer or person I've had to deal with. The whole thing only lasted 2 seconds. I don't know why that bothered me more than other customers who were impossible to please. Story 49. Customer bought a stainless steel pan and was livid that some eggs sucked to the bottom. Brought it in still dirty and threw it at the manager that refused to return it. Most of my terrible encounters revolved around some form of stealing. We had old ladies sewing tags from $400 suits into their used sweaters, girls returning their club outfits from the night before, professional crews coming in and swiping tables worth of polo shirts, purse thieves getting tased, etc. Do not miss working in stores. Story 50. Last Thursday, I had a customer yell at me on the phone for 9 minutes and 47 seconds because the order that he had emailed over approximately 4 minutes before he called on Thursday had not been delivered on Wednesday. Yes, this man decided that it was my fault that an order that he did not send to us until a solid 24 hours after he wanted it to be delivered had not shown up at his loading dock when he wanted it. Retail workers, what's the best threat you've ever received at work? Story 1. Pain-in-the-ass customer comes unhinged, gets wake-up call, gets help. In my dark and sordid past, I worked at a Pizza Hut. There was this one guy who would send his teen son in to get their order. Invariably, they'd arrive early and their order would not be ready yet. The son would leave the store, and the father would come in and start yelling about how lousy we were, never having their pizza done, etc. The same guy would get his pizza, take it home, and then call later saying we had messed up his order. My manager would always tell him that if he returned with the pizza, we would remake it for him. He'd always say that they ate it anyway, etc., but he'd want free pizza instead. My manager never gave in to that demand, but always told him that as long as he brought the bad pizza back, she'd make him another to replace it. After a few of these episodes, my manager and I developed a procedure to handle his orders. On his order, we would document when he called, how long we told him it would take, and we would add at least 15 minutes to his order time. When he came in, we would show him his pizza and make him confirm it was correct and to his satisfaction. Well, he stopped coming in. He would make his son pick up the pizza. We would go through the process with his son. The guy would still try to call in later and complain. So we started refusing to sell his family's order to anyone but him. One very busy Saturday, I'm running the main register. He makes his order, comes in and is waiting with everyone else. His turn comes. I retrieve his order, start showing it to him, and he starts in complaining loudly that we never get his order right. I ask him what is wrong with the pizzas in front of him. He doesn't answer, but continues to rant loudly about how we are the worst. And while he is ranting, I close up his pizza boxes and set them back on the warmer. He stops and looks at me. I then calmly tell him that since it is obvious that there is no pleasing him, I'm not going to bother selling him the pizzas he ordered. He turns about 6 shades of purple, lunges at me, and then tries to climb over the counter and grab his pizzas off the rack. I step back, grab his pizzas, and hand them to a coworker and tell them to take his pizzas to the back and get my manager. The guy runs out the door and all the other customers are just standing there wondering what they'd just witnessed. I call the next name and start selling pizzas again. Later, my manager comes to me and tells me she called the guy and told him he was banned from buying pizzas from us ever again. Well, about a month later, I'm running the register, call out a name, and the guy's teen son comes up to the register. He's his usual friendly self. I sell him his pizzas, but I notice he looks different. Prior to this, the kid would look like he had been in a fight or was bruised in some way. This time, he had no cuts, bruises, or band-aids on him. I didn't say anything. He took his pizzas and left. For the next few weeks, we'd get an order for the family under the new name. We'd fill it. The kid would pick it up and pay for it. We never heard any complaints. I'd still show him the pizzas before I rang him up. He'd always be very happy and tell us the pizzas looked great, etc. Then early one afternoon, my manager asked me to show up a little early. She said there was a meeting I had to attend due to a customer requesting a meeting with both of us. The request had come through our corporate office. I get to work, my manager tells me that the guy had called corporate and demanded a meeting be set up. Corporate had talked to my manager, and she had filled them in on his ordering habits, etc. Her boss then said he would attend the meeting too. She told me to keep an open mind, allow her to do her job, and see what happens. The guy shows up, has his wife with him and his teen son. My manager introduces her boss to the guy. He introduces his wife and kid to us. Then my manager asks, "So what can we do for you?" He asked me if I remember the last time he and I talked. I nodded. He goes on to say that it was very memorable to him also. He said his actions had scared him and made him take a good long look at himself. He said that, long story short, he had gotten help and was there to apologize to me for the way he had acted. I just stood there. I didn't know what to say. He said what he was doing was something that he felt he needed to do. Up to that night, his life had been out of control, and that he had almost lost his family over the way he had been. His wife thanked us, and he shook my hand, and my manager said some things, excused me, and I headed into the back of the store to prepare for my shift. She later filled me in on the rest of her conversation. After he left that night, he'd gone home without the pizzas. After my manager had called and told him he was banned, his wife packed up her stuff and left him, telling him that until he got help, he could forget about having either of them in his life. So I figure it was her giving him an ultimatum more than what went on in our store that gave him good reason to do something about his problem. Story 2. Stuck in the car with a crazy customer for nearly 2 hours as she berates me and dishes out personal attacks. I was working as a shuttle driver for a car dealership, a free service, so people didn't have to rent a car while theirs was being worked on. First thing one morning, I had to drive this woman, we'll call her Claire, to her office. Without traffic, it was about a 35-minute drive. She seemed pleasant enough, but repeated at least 3 times that I needed to be there at exactly 5 o'clock to pick her up again. It's about 3:30 and I'm an hour in the opposite direction. I call my boss to tell him I'm on my way to get her. 4:30, stuck in traffic, call my boss again to ask him to call her for me and let her know I'm nearby, but stuck in gridlock. He says he will, and texts me the number should I need to call her myself. 4:45, getting near her office, so I call to get confirmation of the exact address. A man named Gary picks up, says she's already gone for the day. I arrive at the building about 4:59. I call again. Again, I get Gary, who says she is gone, so I wait. I get a call from her about 3 minutes later. She just says, I'll be down in 1 minute. I get out, open the passenger door, and wait outside the car for her to come down. She gets in without saying anything. As soon as I get in the car, where the duck were you? I attempt to explain that I had been there on time, had attempted to get in contact with her a number of times, and that I spoke to Gary in her office. She then proceeds to tell me that Gary had the day off and wasn't there, that my boss told her I had no idea where I was, or if I even knew I had to pick her up, that she had waited outside for me for 45 minutes in the hot sun and almost had a heat stroke, that the elevator in her building was broken so she had to walk up and down 4 floors 3 separate times, because I wasn't there on time. I knew that no amount of logic or truth that would convince this woman of anything because she was clearly out of her mind. So I tried to placate her with an apology so the hour-long drive through traffic wouldn't be complete torture. When I tried to apologize, she said something along the lines of, "Shut up, just shut up. I don't want to hear it. I've been going to blank dealership for 5 years and I've never been treated this poorly. When we get there, I'm going to tell your boss that it's either you or me. Either you have to go or I will." Awesome. 5 minutes go by, I try again. "Ma'am, again, I want to Apollo." "Just shut up. Shut up already." A few minutes more, she starts asking me hypothetical questions about my life and why I'm such a terrible person, reiterating the fact that she's going to get me fired. On and on she goes, just laying into me with personal attacks. A little later still, after all of this verbal abuse, she thinks it pertinent to ask a favor of me. Because I supposedly made her late, I needed to drive her on an errand before I take her back to the dealership. Desperate to have this woman's mouth shut, I ask how far out of the way it will be and agree. She directs me to her house. She goes inside, gets her dog, and walks it around the block. As soon as she gets around the corner, I start beating the steering wheel and just scream at the top of my lungs. I sit there fuming, waiting. It takes her about 20 minutes. She gets back in the car and says, "Now, to the dealership. I want to see your boss." As soon as I get there, I decide at this point, duck it. Duck this abuse, duck this woman. Not literally, she was gross. Duck this job, and duck these overtime hours I'm not going to get paid for. If I don't get fired, I'm quitting. I put on the radio, tuned to the alternative metal station. She asks me to shut it off. I turn it up. This Chevy Venture minivan is now a race car. I'm weaving through traffic and her pleas of slow down are falling on deaf ears. "Slow down, you have to turn ahead." Duck that I'm late braking and following a proper racing line. She's holding onto the oh crap handle above the door with white knuckles when we finally get there. I step the brake all the way to the floor and we stop dead in front of the entrance with a neat little screech. She's practically out of breath, but stammers, "Go get your boss. You're fired." I walk in, red in the face, halfway between punching a hole through the wall and breaking down crying. My boss bursts out laughing. "How's Claire?" A coworker says, "Oh, you had Claire today? I'm sorry, buddy. Should have warned you." I was dumbfounded. I start to explain, but my boss cuts me off when I get to the part about her walking her dog. He walks out, she tells him her sob story, and gives him the ultimatum of either I'm fired or she leaves. My boss tells her she is welcome to take her business to our competing dealership across town, because he is going to refuse her should she ever return. I did quit, but I at least waited until the next day and put in my 2 weeks. Story 3. Oh, how fun. I work at a rather large retail chain which has thousands of locations across North America, paired with a rather large fast food restaurant, I guess. So I once upon a time worked as a stock associate, store standards associate. My jobs including doing anything and everything pretty much. But my main duties were to handle customer carryouts and collect the shopping carts. One day I got a call from someone at the courtesy desk saying, "Hello, Adam. We need you to escort a lady and her daughter to her car." Thinking nothing of it as I was new to the job. I go, "Oh, sure." Me and another guy show up to escort her out. We get her to her car, and this black guy shows up, gets between us and the lady, pries her already open door, even more open with his feet, and is screaming, "I want to see my ducking daughter, duck Karen, etc." Me and the other guy were just kind of standing there, not knowing WTF to do. So I gently touch his shoulder in what I thought was a calming manner and say, "Sir, please leave, or we will have to call the police." Then he violently shakes me off and yells, "Back the duck off, because keep you ducking hands off me." So I just stand there again confused. Then the lady is finally able to close the door and peel off. Guy is later apprehended by the police, the people we should have called earlier to deal with this bull crap. Another time there was a time we only had 70 shopping carts for the whole store and very few baskets. And guess what? They were all in use. So this guy comes up, starts getting pissed. "Where are all the shopping buggies and baskets?" I said, "Unfortunately, due to a critical shortage, everything we have is in use currently." Then I give a face. Then he replies, "No, this is absolute bullcrap. I want to talk to a manager about this." So I say, "Okay, I'll get you a manager, but they will tell you the exact same thing." So we are walking up to a manager, and this guy is being an idiot. He's like, "Come here, etc." So we get to the manager and he's like, "Hi, there's no more carts left. What's going on?" And in pretty much the exact words I said, my manager said the same thing I did. And the guy, disappointed by his failed power trip, gets this look on his face like, "Damn," hangs his head and storms off. Another time, this lady comes inside complaining how there was a bunch of carts piled up next to her car door and she can't get in. Now let me hold that for a sec and talk about something. Mother ducking carts. I ducking hate customers for what they did still do with them. Bunch of ducking savages in this town. They pile the carts behind other people's cars. They put them in the most crafty, inconvenient places and put them in parking spaces. They leave them everywhere. Even when the goddamn cart corral is like 3 meters away. That's how lazy these are. As a result, I hate the bulk of customers, though I try to maintain a degree of professionalism. So anyways, this lady comes in. She comes to me and complains about it and wants me to get out there and fix it. So she's like, "Hi, yeah, there's a bunch of carts gathers up next to my car and I can't even really get back in." I reply, "I'm sorry about that. People don't like to put their carts back where they belong." She replies, "Well, are you going to fix this for me?" So at the time, my coworker was outside collecting carts. I say, "Currently, my coworker is outside collecting carts. He is in a reflective vest. If you seek him out, he will gladly aid you." Here's where she starts to get truly Karen-y. "I want you to fix this. This is your problem. This is your fault," I reply. "I'm sorry, miss, but that's really a customer error. My coworker who is outside with the reflective vest on will gladly help you." Now she gets red in the face, just absolutely pissed. "Whatever, I'm not going to argue with you." So I replied, "Neither am I." I did a 180 on my heels and walked away to take care of other business I had to tend with. And she went on to complain about me to several people, but I got no heat about it. I told everyone the story and they just laughed, ducking right on Adam. Another time I was out collecting some carts, so I have a small stack that I'm pulling behind me, and I go up to some people who are loading their items into their vehicle. Now here's another thing. I have utter contempt for people who leave their ducking trash in our goddamn carts. Makes me so angry. So this couple finishes loading the groceries into their vehicle. They look at me. I give them a nod. The husband says, "Here you go." Then his wife throws some trash into the cart as he is giving it to me. So that got me pretty mad, so I pick up the trash out of the cart swiftly as they are about to turn to get in their car. I hand it to them. "Here you go. You forgot something." And his wife just says, "Oh," and I walk away with the carts and a smirk on my face. Anyways, I have more stories, but I already used up most of my Canadian bandwidth typing this wall of text. Story 4. I was a manager of a clothing boutique in the mall. I got the gig through a friend who later quit, opening up his manager position for me. Anyways, it was cake. All I did was make the schedule and enter a code to approve returns. One day I'm walking the floor and this lady flags me down. "Son, does that young man have an earring in his ear?" "Yes, he does. I'd like to speak to the manager." "Well, you're in luck. How can I help you?" "I just think that's very showy, if you catch my drift." "I'm afraid I don't, ma'am. If he should just keep that to himself. And it's your job to make sure he doesn't come to work like that." "I'm sorry it offends you. He isn't gay. He's not making a statement. Well, if you aren't going to do anything about it, I'll just everyone I know that there are gots working here. And she left and I barreled over with laughter. 6 months later, we went out of business. I guess she knew more people than I thought. Story 5. I used to work at an adult novelty store that sold various things such as adult toys, adult outfits, and adult costume. This store had a few various rules. About 1. Absolutely everyone must be 18 or older. All Ds will be checked. 2. No large bags, backpacks, or purses past the counter. 3. All refunds or exchanges must have receipt in all packaging. 4. All products have a 30-day return exchange limit. Anyone entering the store has to be 18 or older. It was very common for women to bring their kid in a baby carrier, stroller, or to walk in with their toddler while they browse sex toys. So, a lady brings her baby in a carrier, along with her toddler walking alongside her. I politely tell the lady due to state law, minors cannot enter the store. She tells me, "Duck, you're a hole." Takes her kids outside for about 3 minutes. Then she comes back in and starts shopping. She's in there for about 15 minutes when I idly look outside and see a car with a toddler jumping around the driver's seat and a baby in the back in the car seat. Car is running, can tell since it's cold outside. I ask across the not-so-large store, "Ma'am, is there anyone in the car with your kids?" She says no and to mind my own ducking business. I pick up the phone, call the cops, and inform them someone has left 2 small children unattended in a car. 4 minutes later, cops roll up, find the car, and get the kids while waiting for mommy. Some 30 minutes later, she finishes and makes her purchase, walks outside and is promptly arrested. Me and a coworker, I'm training a new girl, are working the night shift during the summer. Already have about 10 people in the store. A mid-20s couple walk in smelling of alcohol. They walk around a bit looking at costumes and toys when they come up to the counter while I'm helping the new girl go through ringing up and whatnot. Where the guy of the couple says to my female coworker, "Hey Karen, you've got some nice tits," and proceeds to say some crude things about her doing things with the toys. I turn to the guy and say, "Sir, refrain from any crude remarks to the store's employees or you will be required to leave." He then tells me to watch my punk ass or he will hop over the counter and shut me up. To clarify, I'm a tall guy, but I'm wiry. I tell the guy to leave now, and his business is no longer welcome at our store. He leans over to grab me, but he isn't close enough to the counter, and I'm standing back from it, so he can't reach. I tell the female coworker to call the cops. The guy takes a swing at me, and my coworker over the counter then runs out the store. As they leave, I grab their license plate number, and we give it to the cops, informing the cops that both people in the car are very drunk and reeking of alcohol. Cop stops by about an hour later and tells us the woman was driving and was drunk, the guy was drunk and had 2 warrants out on him, and the woman's license was revoked and the vehicle had no insurance. On top of it, we showed the cop the video of the guy trying to hit me and my coworker, as well as the light threats he made. So we filled out reports on top of that. I have many more stories from working at this place, but these have already gone on too long. Story 6. I worked at a Burger King when I was 16 where we got crazy amounts of buses. Could tell 100 stories, but only got threatened once though. We had this special for Lent where you could get 2 fish sandwiches for $3, but you had to get the 2. If you got 1 or 1 in a meal, it was like $20 or something for the odd sandwich. Anyways, this fat on a Greyhound bus came in and was caring about everything. She wanted mustard and tartar sauce on her sandwiches. Tried it later. And she told me like a bazillion times to make sure it got it right because none of your lazy ducks ever gets them right. Anyways, she orders 3 of these mustard and tartar sauce monstrosities, and I told her that the odd one would be like $20, but she told me she didn't care. So obviously after getting her order, she comes up and starts screaming that I cheated her. I told her I had not, and offered to ask the store manager, who was my cousin, 21 years older than me, don't ask, to deal with the problem anyways. She told me, literally, that the customer is always right, and if I didn't give her money back, she'd jump over the counter and fuck me up. Being 16, I told her to go ahead and try it. So she actually did, only she was so fat she couldn't really jump, and so she threw her empty water bottle at me and almost missed, even though she was like 5 feet away. Then she sort of rolled over the counter and put up her dukes. At this point, I was laughing my ass off because it was so awesome with her lard rippling down from her fat ass arms. My cousin told someone else to call the cops, told me to take a break in the back and get some food if I wanted, then told Lardface exactly what would happen if I sued her for assault, since I was a minor, and my cousin could prove that I did nothing actionable. Even better, everyone on the bus had to wait for the cops to get there because the bus driver had to stay to report to the cops what had gone down. It took about an hour for Greyhound to get another bus there to pick up the other passengers. So needless to say, there were plenty of volunteers to tell the cops about Lardface's stupidity. Story 7. Oh, the stories I have from working in a supermarket. The first and best happened when I was working the seafood counter one night. The guy who was working in the meat department both departments were connected, came up to me because a customer was in back looking through the stock. He didn't want to deal with it, but made me do it. The dude was 40 years old or so, and lazy as hell. He didn't last long. I go up to the woman, and a person from another department was in there with her, since he let her in. Me, can I help you? Lady, I need lamb chops. Me, well, I can get some for you, but you cannot be back here. Lady, yes, I can. Me, no, you can't. It's for your own safety. We're cleaning and we have a number of saws and knives all over the place. Lady, oh, yes, I can. Me, no, you can't. Either get out or I'm calling security. She was growing a bit more flustered and a bit more belligerent. I look over to the employee who led her back there and said after a few minutes of the woman continuing to dig through the product, me, get her out of here. I'm calling security. He luckily gets her out, but she begins screeching in this high-pitched banshee wail. You can't do this to me. My husband is one of New York's finest. Keep in mind, we don't live anywhere near New York. She kept yelling it though, so loud that the people in the front end of the store, since we're in the back of it, could hear her perfectly. It was then she told the other employee that she was gonna kick my ass. The woman then comes to the seafood counter and of course I'm there. She asks for some fish, but me being a bit smug and still waiting for the manager reply to her. Me, well ma'am, I don't think I should help you since you're being incredibly rude and are not listening to us. It's all for your own safety. Her, you can't do this to me. My husband is one of New York's finest. Do you know what that means? I can do whatever I want. By this time, the manager comes with security and escorts her out of the store. While she's leaving, she's constantly going off how she's going to kick my ass and stuff like it. Oh yeah, we also found out she was high on substances as well. She was absolutely sky high. The second story though, it's much shorter. I was working at the seafood counter and a couple walks up the counter to buy fish. They were regulars and they were always very rude, especially the wife. They order fish and the woman asks her, I want to smell it. Me, I'm sorry, but we cannot do that. The FDA does not allow people to put their faces close to the fish. I can assure you this came in today, which it did no more than 5 minutes before I put the stuff into the case. Her, I want to smell the fish. Me, I'm sorry, man, we can't do that. Her, well, I'm going to sue you. I hope you have a good lawyer. How in the hell can you tell me how to spend my money? You are very rude and I'm going to speak to your manager. She doesn't buy the fish, nor speak to the manager. I saw her a couple of times after that, and I barely gave her the time of day, but she tried to be as nice as possible. Go figure. I nearly was beaten up by someone who claimed she was married to a New York police officer and was nearly sued because I didn't let someone smell fish. Story 8. This was a good number of years ago now. I was an assistant manager of major pizza chain location outside of a large Midwestern town. It was just before 8 p.m. on a Sunday night, and we had a packed dining room. 3 scheduled birthday parties, one who had just gotten seated after waiting almost a half an hour. There are about 4 tables waiting to be seated still at this point, but we had no place to put them. Half the kids in the last party were on the floor as it was. Then a bus pulls up, followed by 4 full-size vans. About 60 people push their way in, past the people still waiting on tables. Seeing that this was not going to end well, I asked to talk to whoever was in charge of the group, as there was no place for us to fit these people. 4 guys come up to me, and I talk to them aside out of hearing range of the group. I will explain the situation. We are packed, and because it was an unplanned party of over 20, we really have no options. There were at least 10 to 15 people ahead of them, and it would be at best an hour before we could start to even seat them. What? This is a lie. You won't seat us because we are Indian. You are an idiot. I tried to calm them down. I tried to take the more reasonable, younger guy aside and told him how it was. If they wanted to wait, we would be more than willing to seat them, even if we closed in an hour, but I didn't say that. I told him I was sorry that we were packed, and that for a party of this size, if they had called ahead to at least check if we could have fit them, we would have worked something out with them. That calms him down. He goes to talk to the other men. At this point, crap hits the fan. One swings at one of my servers like he is going to slap her. Another guy picks up a bar stool and is running at me. He smashes it on the ground. Another guy starts tossing fake potted plants at a window trying to break it, not succeeding. He turns over a rack of chips in carryout, and then they try to tip over a crane machine and fail. I am screaming, telling them to get the hell out, while one of the cooks is on the phone with the police. It takes 10 minutes for the cops to get there, so we are kind of all locked in the store with a ton of customers watching a mad mob running around in the parking lot, still screaming. The cops talk to them, then talk to us. Because there was no real damage, and because I just wanted them to go, the cops did not even write up a report, but made sure they all left. And the best part, I am picking things up, and a lady from the last birthday party walks up behind me and pours a full soda on my head. He was right. You are in a hole. Thank you, Mom. I hope you have a great night. Story 9. This story happened to my friend, and there were no real threats, just hilarity. My buddy was at a KFC in Chicago, and the lady before him, alone, ordered 2 buckets of chicken. The guy behind the counter asks, "Is this for here or to go?" And she suddenly screams, "You think I'm sit here and eat all this chicken by myself?" And he screams back, "Karen, I don't know your life." Perfect response. Story 10. I worked at this terrible call center before the awesome job I have now. They sold everything from roll-a-hose, perfect pancake, tourist pamphlets, and Girls Gone Wild. Basically, any infomercials product. They were contracted by hundreds of companies, and when the call came in, the number dialed would bring up whatever product they were calling for on the computer. I cannot count the number of times people would jack off and ask me if I was the one in the pink top they were watching on the commercial. I had a few people call just to say, "I'm going to hit you." By this time, I was completely indifferent and had only apathy for them. Of the several weird things that happened while there, the one I won't forget was this guy that would call and ask about a spray that you were supposed to squirt into your mouth and it would help prevent snoring. Never snore. At the time, the product was no longer available for sale through my call center, but if someone called about it, we could offer some very limited information. To buy it, the guy had to call a different 800 number. The first time I spoke to this guy, he asked questions about the product and how it worked. Seemed totally normal, confused customer. A few weeks later, I got a call about the same product. This was weird because we almost never got calls for old products, let alone the same product more than once, especially since the commercials weren't playing anymore. After answering some slightly odd questions about the application of the spray in the mouth, the call ended and I wondered, is that the same guy from before? The third time he called a few weeks later, he finally revealed enough for me to get what he was going for. This time he told me how his girlfriend snores, and he wanted to use the spray to help when they sleep. He said he was worried though, since it was sprayed in the mouth that she would, in the back of her mouth. From there on, he kept trying to get me to say gag, and he was getting off on the word. That's when the previous calls clicked in my mind, and I understood that his whole point to calling before was just to get a girl to talk about gagging. It was really odd that I happened to get him 3 times, considering how many reps there were taking calls. Made me wonder how many times he called. Story 11. I had a lady call in, and she just started screaming obscenities at an associate, telling us we're all kinds of horrible people, and she's gonna sue us, because she was in the store yesterday and bought a pack of highlighters. Then, apparently she fell asleep for only 10 minutes, and her dog ate them, and now he's dying. Yep, she was gonna sue the manager, because according to her dog was half brain dead now, and all it does is run in circles. The associate finally was able to transfer her to a manager, but she just continued yelling obscenities and threatening to sue. So of course the manager countered with, "First of all, that's really nothing you can sue us for, considering we didn't make the product, nor did we feed it to your dog. And secondly, if your dog is sick and or dying, the first thing you need to do is get him to a vet." The lady, of course, thought nothing of this and threatened to hire a lawyer. But first, she was going to bring the dog into the store so we could see what we had done to him, and so that we could feel the guilt of our sin. And if he died first, she actually threatened to throw the dead dog at our manager. I was so disappointed when she never showed up. Story 12. Many years ago at Starbucks, a 45-ish businessman approaches me. "Hey, how's it going?" Customer. "How's it going? This isn't a ducking McDonald's, okay? You will address me as sir and take my order like a ducking professional. Do you understand me?" Me, sarcastically. "Good day to you, sir, and welcome to the Starbucks Coffee Corporation, where it is our aim to..." At this point, the guy is behind the counter and completely in my face, ready to throw down. I'm laughing, and the manager grabs him and escorts him to the door. Unlike most expelled customers, he never showed up again. Story 13. Long ago, I worked at a large PC retailer as a technician, cust service, bike gang prospect member fronts. He demands USB cable for newly purchased printer. Not included in box for this brand. Was informed by sales staff when purchased, didn't want one since he had one from his old printer which was parallel. He starts yelling at me, swearing and getting very loud. Everyone in the store, 30 plus people, were looking at this point as it is an open floor plan. He then gets his shoulder at me without raising his arm to get me to flinch, didn't work, like a school bully would, and says, "Stop being a smart. Go get me a cable now or I'll jump this counter and hit your ducking head in." I looked down at his hands. He had large rings on each hand with sharp protrusions in them, knuckle dusters which would rip my face apart if hit softly. I told him that I'll go speak with the manager. I went to the office at the back of the shop from the front service counter and found all the managers and other free salespeople watching events from the security monitor. I walked in the office and they all quickly walked away, feigning to be busy or on the phone. I told the boss and 2 other managers I'd been threatened and would like someone to come to the counter with me. They all were busy. No one wanted to call the police. I was enraged, so I grabbed a USB cable from stock, peeled the stock sticker off it, and in front of all the busy managers, and loudly slammed the sticker onto the filing cabinet and walked down the front, handed the cocksucker the cable, and went to leave. He won his argument with physical threats, so he was happy. Now, big, tough guy has a sore back and can't carry his PC to his car outside. Despite wanting to punch on with me and bringing it to the counter in the first place, despite not being required at any stage, didn't bat an eyelid, just picked it up and carried it to his car, but afterwards probably wasn't the best idea. He started getting lippy and wanted the last mighty words before I returned to the store. Be careful who you say no to, it isn't a word I like to hear, and just stared at me as I walked back to the shop. I didn't deserve that treatment from him or my superiors. I was polite and professional the whole time. The kicker, PC was purchased by them as a business registered as a charity, money laundering foundation. Like a Kids Make a Wish sort of foundation. Story 14. So, I work at the front desk of a small transportation company. I'm basically hired security in that I screen passengers before they get in our vehicles. This guy comes up and asks for a ticket. I give him the rundown, and I see he has, I crap you not, a ducking 15-inch serrated blade in plain sight. So, I tell him, "Sir, I'm going to need to confiscate that weapon." Suddenly, he gets all defensive and says, "But this is an artifact of my people." I tell him, "Sir, that is a 15-inch serrated blade. I can't let you on the transport with that." Next, he calls me an idiot. Like I don't hear that like 50 ducking times a day. He then tells me he doesn't understand why I'm treating him like a criminal. This is where I start losing my patience. I tell him, "Sir, you tried to bring a 15-inch serrated blade onto public transport." Again, he calls me an idiot. Finally, after arguing with him back and forth, he finally agrees to hand over the blade. Story 15. I work at a retailer that sells popular body products. Fragrances come and go. That's just how it is. They can't keep them all forever. Well, sometimes people get so upset when I tell them their fragrance is no longer in stores. However, most of them are online. Lady comes in today and demands a fragrance we don't have in stores. I very politely tell her we do not carry it in stores, but she can still find it online. She loses it. She starts screaming about how I am incompetent and how she should be able to buy it in store if it is online. Keep in mind, she is yelling at me, like screaming over a ducking scent of lotion. I tell her most online-only products are marked that way, and I give her a customer service card. Because she is so irate, and this company is obsessed with making customers happy, I tell her she can have 20% off her purchase. She screams at me and tells me if I don't give her money to cover shipping, she's going to make me sorry. I tell her I can't just take money from the store. She says, "Not from the store. You should give it to me." She wanted me to hand her money from my own ducking pocket to cover shipping. She actually said, "I don't think I'm being unreasonable." I basically just stared at her. She said she was coming back and I might want to reconsider. Story 16. I'm currently working at an art supplies store that isn't open until this Thursday. We've been in store since the 4th of February setting it up, and people always try to come inside, ignoring the 3 giant coming soon signs and the banner. Most people get to the automatic doors, realize they won't open, look around and see the signs, then leave. Well, it was about 9:01 p.m. We close at 9 regularly. And a hole shows up and knocks on the door. I pry the doors open and tell him that we're closed. He says, "No, it'll only take a minute. Open her back up." I say, "No, sir. We're literally closed for the month." A hole. What about all this crap on the shelves? Me. You mean the 1/3 of the store that's stocked? Yeah, we're in the process of opening this store. The sign says February 25th. A hole. Give me the store phone number. I'm calling your manager. Me. The store isn't open, the phone doesn't work, but my manager's in the back. I can go get her. A hole. No, boy, I'm dealing with you. Me. Well, we're closed. A hole. Threatening voice. Just you wait. I'm coming back. Me. But that's what I've been trying to get you to do. Guy goes to his car and peels out and leaves. Story 17. I worked at Game Crazy at the time. It was near Christmas, and a woman came in and bought a Guitar Hero 3 bundle. Fast forward 3 days. Man and woman come in to return the bundle because he didn't want it. He was very tugged out. Says, "Yo man, I'm low on dough right now. When is this refund going to credit back in my account? Can I get cash?" I informed him that I could not give him cash, as he paid with his card. I said that it could be anywhere from 1-3 business days for it to credit back to his account, but to make sure he checks the balance before spending. He complained about needing gas, but there was nothing I could do. Next day, less than a week before Christmas, huge line waiting to buy gifts. Phone ring. It's him and he's angry. "Man, I thought you said I'd get my money back." "I'm sorry, sir. Who is this?" "I came up there yesterday to refund Guitar Hero, and you said I'd get my money back." "You will get your money back, sir. It will take anywhere from 1-3 days. You said I'd get it immediately. I bought gas after I left, and now my account is all ducked up because of you." "Sir, I never said that you would get it immediately." "You're really starting to piss me off. I come up there and beat your Karen ass." By this time, everyone in line had noticed that this guy was full on yelling at me over the phone. "But you just refunded something here. Your name and address are on file, sir." "Well, then you better pay me back yourself." "I can't do that, sir. I told you that you should check your balance before using your card. It isn't my fault you overdrafted. I'm going to be up there to whoop your ass in a minute, boy, unless you have my money. If you come up here, I'm going to call the police." He hangs up. Everyone in line is really nice, tells me not to worry about it. He never showed up. At some point in the conversation, I told him that if he didn't stop yelling, I would hang up, but he wouldn't stop. Crazy people. Story 18. I run a computer store, and if someone doesn't pick up their computer for a long time, we either part it out or sell it. Every customer that drops off a computer for service signs a work order sheet. Here's the part that matters. Equipment not claimed for 10 business days after completion of service is subject to a storage charge of $1,000 per day. When my store determines that service and storage charges exceed the fair market value of the equipment will be the property of my store, and the subsequent disposition of the equipment will be at the sole discretion of my store. The whole thing they sign is kind of long, so when we have them sign it, we paraphrase the whole thing. This part usually goes like, "If you don't pick it up in 10 days, we charge storage, and if it goes too long, we consider it abandoned." Easy enough to understand, I would think. We had a guy not pick his PC up for the 10 days. We called him to remind him. He said he would come by in the next couple days to get it. We said we would waive the storage fee. A week later, he didn't show up. We call again, voicemail box full. Same thing for 2 more weeks. This computer has been finished for over a month now. Technically, we should charge this guy 300 plulas in storage fees. This is a locally owned store, and we flex the rules all the time. We wanted to give the guy a chance. We tried a couple more times over the next 2-3 months to get a hold of him with no luck. After 6 months, I say duck it, sell the thing. He's never coming in. 3 days later, he comes in looking for it. I couldn't believe it. He has some sob story about being in the hospital for 4 or 5 months or something. He was pissed that the computer wasn't there anymore. He went on a rant about how we shouldn't sell other people's stuff and it's stealing and all that. I show him what he signed. I have the original copy and a scanned copy. These were his exact words. "Oh, I don't go by that." I said, "Well, we do." He said that we'd be hearing from his lawyer, snatched the paper, and walked out. That was 6 months ago. Haven't seen him or his lawyer since. Story 19. This happened a few years ago while working for a games in Canada. First is a little bit of setup for the situation. Rock Band for the Wii had just come out. This was months after the 360, PS3, PS2 version of the game had already come out. In Canada, when games come out, they must have both English and French instruction. The Rock Band Wii that had been shipped, however, was missing the French instruction. A store product recall was then placed on Rock Band so that the French instruction manuals could be included. There was nothing wrong with the product or anything, so there was no customer recall. Just the stores had to return their stock is all. So a week or so after this happens, a customer comes in with a PS2 version of the game, demanding his money back because of the recall. The recall had been on news sites and such, but really not that big of news. He had a receipt and everything. I don't remember the date, but he had bought the game like months before, like 3 or 4 months. After explaining to him that there was no product recall and that the recall that was in effect was only the Wii version, he became irate, yelling and screaming that there was a recall and he was entitled to having his money back. Again, I told him there was nothing I could do and he wanted to speak to the manager. Well, my manager was out back, so I went and got him. After my manager told him the same thing I had just told him, the customer said, "Well, I'm just going to stand here until you give me my money back." My manager then said he couldn't stay here, and if he was going to, we would have mall security make him leave. Well, this made the customer freak out again, and he started running around the store, pushing over racks of games. Keep in mind, this is a grown man in his 30s, 40s. So now my manager goes over, gets in his way, and tells him he must leave now. And then out of nowhere, the guy punches my manager in the face, breaks his glasses and everything. I think that at this point, the customer realized what he was doing and bolted out of the store. Story 20. I worked at an ice rink in a pretty affluent area up until a year or two ago. Friday and Saturday nights, the rink had free skate nights that mostly drew the middle school crowd, as there was a public middle school next door. The rink has a city police officer come to run security on the place because these kids sneak off into first aid rooms to do whatever. Some of the things I've dealt with, I was working with a very passive coworker one night in the concession stand. He was leaning on the counter on his elbows when 2 guys walk up, pull their wallets out, and proceed to see who has a bigger wad of cash on them. Both had $60+ on them. Our food isn't cheap, 3-ish for fries, 2-ish for hot chocolate, but not a $60 night. One of them emerges victorious from the money count and presses the wad of cash in my coworker's face. You like how that smells? Kid got thrown out later that night for making an ass of himself. regardless. Management knew who he was. Self-entitled prats reaching over the counter and stealing stuff on display. Candy, whipped cream dispensers, dipping sauce cups, anything they could reach. Story 21. Not really retail, but duck it. I used to work at the YMCA at their regional office. I was a tennis counselor, but I really hated my job because I had to manage 30 kids for $12 per hour for 8 hours a day on tennis courts where I was 120 plus degrees in the summer. Anyway, my story. I came to work about an hour early one day because I wanted to work out beforehand and they had free coffee. As I'm entering the building, there's a girl, probably my age, I was 17 at the time, working the reception desk. There's this arrogant, self-entitled git yuppie arguing with the girl. Knowing that I probably won't be able to work out, I grab a coffee and sit down to see where this will progress. After 30 seconds, he starts screaming at her, telling her that he left his card at his house and stating that he doesn't have a number tied to his account. Obviously bullcrap. He just wants to get in for free. After calling her an escort, whatever, she breaks down from the abuse and several older gentlemen start reasoning with him to leave. They don't want to do anything because he keeps saying that he works for the DOJ and gives them some meaningless threats about prosecution. All bullcrap. I stand up, go to him, and tell him to leave. He gives me the same tirade. So I ask him, "What department do you work for?" The dialogue goes as such. Him. "What department?" "Duck you, that's what department." Me. "No, sir, I'm just really interested. I applied for an internship there and want to see what you do." Him. Pauses for a minute. "Well, I work for the Dangerous Narcotics Unit." Me. "Okay, sir, I advise that you leave before I call the police." Him. "The police? The ducking police? I am so much higher than the police. Do you know what kind of crap I can bring down on you? You're foreign, aren't you? I can call the ins and duck you over." Me. "Sir, I am Russian, but I'm also a citizen of the United States. You can't do anything to me. In fact, this whole thing has been recorded." I point to the camera above him. "Also, my neighbor is the head of the Dangerous Narcotics Unit. I'm sure he would love to see you on camera here, saying everything you have said." His face blanched. He quickly picked up his crap and left immediately. Story 22. I am a cashier at a supermarket chain. A man and a woman come through my line. The man is unkempt with a puss on his face. The woman looks mentally handicapped. Her hair is stringy in her face, and her mouth is permanently gaping open with drool dripping down her chin. Really, a pitiful sight. As they are taking groceries out of their cart and putting them on the belt, he starts berating her. She had 2 different types of shampoos and matching conditioners. He would say things like, "What do you need 2 for? You don't need these," and would lean forward, hand the rejects to me, and make the universal crazy sign, spinning finger next to the head. The insults got worse. He started insulting her clothes, her hair, how useless she was. There was a problem with his food stamp card, and he got even more irate. At one point, he turned to her and said, "Stop looking at me like that, you ducking retard." My mouth dropped open. I was on the clock and I couldn't deck the guy or 2, call him out on his crap. When he saw my face, he said, "Don't worry, I wasn't talking about you." In the coldest, venomous, most accusatory way I could muster, I said, "Oh, I know you weren't talking about me." And my eyes flitted over to the woman, who was still drooling, and her eyes out of focus, pointing in different directions. He didn't like the way I spoke to him and pitched a fit. He started yelling that he was gonna kick my ass. I just coldly stared at him. My supervisor, a really cool lady, heard the commotion and said, "Excuse me, what did you just say?" And the man pointed to the woman, pointed to me, and said he didn't have to take this crap. He had a hard day, he was diabetic, and everyone around him were retards. As he was wrung out, the security guard stayed at my register for my own protection. I kindly handed the woman her change and receipt, since the food stamps can't cover everything, and gave the man the biggest duck you look I could muster. I'm a very tiny girl, and this git looked like an ogre. Story 23. I work at a smoke shop in a college town. All the customers are pretty cool. Get a few addicts every now and then, looking for pipes and such. So in our shop, you are not allowed to refer to a bong as a bong. It must be called a water pipe, because bong implies substances used. And yes, I know what people are doing with them. It's just the hoop we have to jump through. I operate on a 3-strike policy. If I warn you 3 times, I will ask you to leave. I had a guy that just wouldn't stop saying bong and kept making really blatant substances references and asking me where he could score. When I finally had enough and asked him to leave, he started backpedaling, saying that he would behave. I told him again he needed to leave, as I could not sell him anything because he made it abundantly clear that he was going to use it for substances. His attitude changed as he pulled out a police badge. The guy wrote me in the shop a ticket for selling paraphernalia, which was like $2 grand. Fortunately, we have cameras with audio that caught the whole thing on tape. The charges got dropped and the guy was supposedly suspended. Now the cops around town love our shop and actually go out of their way to make sure everything is cool after hours. Story 24. The best I can think of is back when I worked for Circuit City shortly before it died. I was a salesman in the computer camera section, and had gone to the front desk to reprint some price tags and saw the following. One of our customer service agents, who was a petite and sweet as could be college girl, was being screamed at by a short, balding, and fat, middle-aged white guy. The conversation was like this. Customer service. See, I'm sorry. This is outside the refund period. Balding guy. BG. So, you can just return it. So just do it. See, I'm sorry. I can't. You have 14 days to return and it is day 20. BG. Duck that. Return it. I can't. I'm sorry. G. If you don't return, whatever it was, I will ducking lost you. At this point, I stepped in. He threatened to just hit, so I called our warehouse and asked for Bill and told him to come pretend to be a manager. Now, Bill was the sort of guy you expect in a warehouse. He was a wannabe biker, well over 6 feet tall, 200 and big bead, and just a bear of a man. I explained to him what happened, and Bill showed up and just leaned over the guy with his arms crossed. Bill, what is the problem? BG. I want to return this. Bill, no. Can I get store credit? Bill, no. Oh, Bill, you should leave and never come back. BG, okay, thanks. And just like that, he was gone. To this day, it haunts me that someone would hit a 20-year-old girl over a stupid return and then become instantly cave once a massive guy comes over. I think I lost faith in humanity that day, but every day not in retail helps me regain a tiny piece of that faith. Story 25. I'm in my last year on university and work at a cell phone store part-time. We deal with some of the angriest people around, it seems like anyways. At least once per shift, someone will come in with a phone that has obviously been dropped in water or been in a very humid environment, which wrecks the phone. Most phones have litmus paper in them, and when you explain liquid damage isn't covered, they flip out and insist it was never dropped in water. Here are some of the resulting comments I've had said to me after telling them that it was been exposed to liquid and is not covered. So, you're calling me a liar? I think I'd know whether I dropped it in a lake if it's a son or daughter's phone. Nope, Timmy, Sally, would never do that. I know them. The phone never leaves their pocket. What's your name? I'm getting you fired. This has been the worst customer service ever. I will make sure you get fired if it's the last thing I do. And my all-time favorite, I'll see that you get fired, and after you do cause, you will, I'll find out where you get another job and get you fired there too. I know too many people for you to ever work again in my town. Edit. I'm not saying I agreed with the policy because it's stupid, however. While working for them, I often have to be the bearer of the news because our repair center absolutely won't touch a phone if the litmus paper is red. A hot shower while it's in the bathroom, a hot steam-filled kitchen, even sweating could probably do it. The paper is extremely sensitive, and the cell phone companies make way to much money on people purchasing phones at full price out of pocket to change the policy. The worst part is phones will often work after it's red, then when a legitimate problem occurs, they won't fix it. Story 26, video game store. Every week it was a new consortium of crazy customers. A lot of similar stories as other people, but two that stand out a bit different. I've never been one to exactly adhere to return policies. Just be a cool person about it. Don't demand things or get irate, and I'll do more than allowed. Guy wants to return game. He bought new, some monster truck game, but it's all scratched up. So say I can't. Scratched game, no way I can circumvent the return and make up an excuse to my boss. Gets mad, says he didn't scratch it, blatantly lies to my face and starts yelling. But the best part, he says, what if I steal this? Points to the credit card swiper machine. Pretty much told him I guess I would get to happily close early because I have no machine for cards, not to mention I have to file out a police report and make them a copy of the crime from cameras, A, point above register, and B, point to side of register, recording. But you still wouldn't get a refund. Guy walks out. Second is, a lady wants to return a DS she bought new. Receipt is a week old. DS has obviously been used. Store policy. Only buyback or replace if defective. This was in the middle of Christmas, as she said it was a gift for her nephew and he would prefer a PSP instead. I tell her, I'm sorry, we can only buy it back unless you tell me it's defective. But seeing how it's the middle of holiday shopping, I would only be able to give you store credit, wink wink, and not be able to replace it. She doesn't get my goodwill and blows up on me, demanding a refund and whatnot. I try to explain to her my plan once more for Christmas spirit's sake. Same thing. She exclaims that how are kids supposed to know what they like? They should be able to try it out and return it. Every other store allows that. I tell her no store would let her buy a soda, open and taste test it, and refund it. Analogy apparently flabbergasts her, and she turns around and leaves. Story 27. To set the scene, working part-time at a Safeway store in the entertainment center. We sold all kinds of junk like DVDs, stereos, and Game Boys and the like. We also sold pretty high-end computers that came in a 2-box package, the tower, and a monitor. One day I'm ringing up a couple of people for some DVDs and whatnot when I notice someone skulking around some of the back aisles where the computer boxes are stacked up. The security camera is not pointed at the stack like it was a minute ago, and the cleaner's mop that was in the corner has been moved. Wonder what's up. Obviously, the next moment, like 2 minutes after the other people check out and leave, this skinny-looking woman comes up to the counter with one of these computers. The box was open and things weren't in their pouches, etc. I need to get a refund on this. Okay, can I see a receipt, please? At this point, you all know the story. She comes at me, threatens to get me fired, says she's Sue, says she'll do all kinds of nasty crap if I don't comply. Well, now, I wasn't about to miss what happened next. So I shoot her down and she's all like, "I'm gonna call the Poils. This is theft." Ironic, considering her next move. She starts pushing the trolley towards the store doors, gets about 3 feet outside when she's greeted by 2 police officers and 2 store managers. Yeah, while she was careening, I hit the intercom to the front desk. They picked up on all this and called the cops. She came back about 6 months later and tried the same thing with a laptop. Had a scarf around her face. I just called the cops right quick. Funniest crap ever, watching someone trying to get away from the cops in a crowded store, I can tell you. Good times. Well, except for the getting threatened and all that. Story 28. I used to work as a manager in a computer store. I have dozens of stories. One time a guy is arguing endlessly with me about a price, insisting he saw the same exact machine for a lower price at another store. We could price match, so I already knew what they were charging at all the other places in town. I refused to budge. Finally, he yells, "Are you calling me a liar?" I mumble, not in so many words, but yes. He got the rage face. So I call the competing store on speakerphone to get a price quote on blah blah this and that, and they say the same price that the guy told me. I add, "Is that with all this extra pre-installed RAM?" No, that would be another X amount of dollars plus the installation fee, making it more expensive than the one on our sales floor. Ha! So the guy gets all miffed that he was wrong and stomps out the door to go to the other store to get their cheaper, slower model. But then over the next few weeks, he keeps sneaking back into our store to ask our notoriously knowledgeable staff questions about how to use it, having never used one before, since the staff at the other store were typical clueless big box pinheads. No offense meant for any typical clueless big box pinheads out there. I know it's a really hard job. So, the guy keeps coming for free advice, only to argue about it because he just doesn't get it. One day the guy starts arguing with one of our sales reps, raising his voice. I'm eavesdropping, being 4 feet away, and I hear the customer say, "You're an idiot." Whoosh! So I'm instantly in front of the customer's face. Did you just call him an idiot? He must not have seen that coming. I tell him to leave the store and never come back. He turned white, stammered a bit, and slithered out the door. I 86'd him like a boss. He was shocked. Shocked, I tell you. I got a real nice lunch from the sales reps that day. Story 29. Years ago, I worked at a local video store. One of the reasons people patronized this video store, over say Blockbuster, was due to the large volume and selection of adult film we offered. Part of the job entailed calling people to inform them of late movies. We were supposed to do this every day, but sometimes laziness prevailed, so it only happened once in a while. Calling people with late adult film was always a challenge. The kids answer, it's always, can I speak to your dad? Sometimes the wife answers. While some people rent adult film as couples, other guys do it without their wives' knowledge. On the day of the event in question, I called for late adult film to an address at least a 30-minute drive away. I can't remember what type of adult film it was, nothing unusual, but this dude's wife answers. I say, "Hi, I'm calling from this video store. Just to inform you about a late movie." We normally specify the name of the movie, not for adult film. "This video store?" "Yes, ma'am. I've never rented there in my life." I think, oh. "Oh, well, may I speak with your husband?" "He's not home. What movie is it for?" "Well, ma'am, it's an adult movie." "Oh, I see, thank you." She hangs up. About 30 minutes later, a violent, angry little man shows up to the store screaming at us for telling his wife that he rents adult film and that he should hit us all for our indiscretions. Freaked the crap out of me. We told him sorry, just doing the job, blah, blah. He left. Half an hour later, his wife shows up. "I'm sorry that my husband came in and yelled at you. We got in a bit of a fight and he was very irrational. But now things are better. I'm glad that I know about his, thank you." She left. They both never came back. I don't know what happened. I'd like to think that they both were comfortable with his adult film renting habits and started renting it together at a video store closer to home, but for all I know, they split. Story 30. I had a woman file a complaint with the state attorney general against a store I managed for false advertising. The promotion that month was a buy one get one free sale on different products throughout the store. The sign on product A said buy one get one free. Another sign on a different and totally unrelated product, B, in another department of the store also said buy one get one free. She was irate that the cash register wouldn't allow the cashier to sell her A and get similarly priced but cheaper B for free. After going up one side of the cashier and down the other for the way the computer calculates the sale, I was called in to explain as sweetly as I could. Ma'am, you buy A and you get a second A for free, or buy B and get a second B for free. You cannot mix and match. It says here in our in print, promotional free items must accompany purchase of identical item at regular price. It's buy one, get one free, not buy one, get something free. But it didn't say that on each and every sign, so we were committing fraud, according to her. According to the staffer from the Ages office, that lady is bat stuff insane, and we've told her we are going to dismiss her claim because there are no grounds, and that isn't even close to false advertising. The best part about it was all the time she must have sat and fumed and spent filing a formal complaint. I absolutely could have done an override on the register and given her B for free. I totally would have, and did many times for other customers. If she had talked to the cashier and me like human beings, asked nicely, and maybe thrown a please or two in there, instead of immediately talking to us like so much dirt under her feet, and didn't deserve to be treated with any kind of respect.